good.
It is just about 5 o'clock on July the 28th. This is a special meeting of the Common Council of the City of Oneonta. And if the clerk would please call the roll, we'll get this started.
Mayor Drennan?
Here.
Councilmember Mosier-Campoli?
Here.
Councilmember Walsh-Russo?
Here.
Councilmember McHugh?
Here.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu?
I'm here.
Councilmember Carson?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart? Councilmember Matheson?
Here.
All right, if you'd all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. We have a very specific agenda here tonight, but we lead off with a motion, which I'll read. Motion that the Common Council authorizes the submission of a grant application to the New York State Homes and Community Renewal NY Main Street Program Downtown Anchor Project on behalf of Brewery Omegang to fund the possible renovation of 58-60 Market Street, Oneonta, New York, for a tap house with a commercial kitchen for a grant up to $500,000, not to exceed 75% of the total project cost, and the local match to be provided by the developer, and further authorizes the city administrator to sign all documents and agreements necessary to execute a grant agreement and complete the project in close collaboration with Brewery Omegang, and subject to review by the city attorney. This Common Council further authorizes the creation of the Community Development Fund for said project and authorizes any budget amendments and transfers. Do I have a motion to approve? I've got Elaine, followed by, I've got Katie, all right? And discussion of this, Don?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The first question is, why is the city involved with this and not Omegang?
Judy, may I, Greg, can I ask Judy to step in here?
That particular grant program requires that municipalities submit on their behalf, so we have to be the applicant for the grant.
Do we have any liability if this doesn't work out? We get the grant and then Omegang, because Omegang said that they're not committed to it, they might or might not do it.
They wouldn't accept the grant until they are committed to it, so if it gets awarded and they commit to it,
Who's they?
Omegang, Brewery Omegang, would be who were applying for the grant on their behalf. So if the city is awarded the grant, then we would be going into a grant agreement with Omegang if they proceed with the project. If at that point, they spent money and we had gotten the money from the state and paid Omegang and then they didn't finish the project, there's always a risk for the city. For any of these grants that we apply on the developer's behalf, the city always has some risk. Some risk is less than others on certain projects. This is a well-known, successful company with a good track record, so our risk is probably lower than on most that we would be applying for.
My understanding, and I'm certainly not an expert, you're the expert on this, but if the entity that's going to get the money doesn't have site control, the state is unlikely to approve the grant.
You can submit this particular application with an indication of site control. It can be a letter from the current owner stating that they're willing to sell the property.
But isn't it more, it's less likely if the developer doesn't have site control?
It's possible that will be up to the funding agency, which is New York State Homes and Community Renewal, to determine. They're not disqualified from the application if they don't have stronger than a letter from the current owner indicating that they're willing to sell. It's in the grant documents that that's eligible still. I don't know what the state funding agency will receive from other communities and what the competition
just
be
seems
clear-
to me,
to be
it
clear,
just
this
seems
is-
to be, considering the letter that we got from Omegang, they haven't committed to anything.
I think it's, what should be clear is we're asking for authorization to submit a grant application. So that's just the very first step in a process. I can't speak to Omegang and their corporate decision structure, but I know that they are very conservative and they weigh every factor before they commit. We feel like we have a pretty good likelihood of them thinking that Oneonta is a place that they'd like to commit to. So I wouldn't be quite as negative about it.
I'm not negative about Omegang and the possibility of them coming to Oneonta. I think that's a very good thing.
Okay.
But it's just the idea that the city, it's a private transaction. There's a seller and a buyer, and I don't see why the buyer or the prospective buyer isn't applying for the grant. The other thing I have a question about is, what's the community development fund? What's that aspect of it?
It's a Ginny question.
Jenny, would you please?
That just means that I have to set up a separate fund on our financial statements to be able to account for the grant activity. That's all it is. Just like setting up a separate capital project fund. If you look at all of our different grants that we get through Judy's activity, all of them have a separate fund. And so this would just be a separate fund for this particular grant.
Thank you.
Anything further, Don?
No.
Yes, Elaine?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, with a grant like this and a, potential proposal like this, would applying for the grant make it more likely that an organization like, Omegang would, be interested in that kind of site?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Without a doubt, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Could I follow up on the risk?
Yes.
The city has no risk in applying, and the city has no risk if we're awarded. At that point, if we're awarded, the city and Omegang can make the decision to move on ahead. It's only once we actually accept the award, and if Omegang doesn't finish the project for some reason, which is doubtful once they commit, that there's risk.
Yeah,
But
you
to go
mean that
ahead and
last part?
submit the application does not put us at risk whatsoever.
Okay. Katie, you had
Thank you.
something?
Let me get back to my notes. First of all, I was so pumped to read this. I think it's such an excellent use of that space, and I think it could be really transformational for downtown. My question is similar in terms of like risk, but really it's more about how can we ensure that it happens. So since we haven't seen the grant, I was wondering if you could tell us if for some reason they were unable to proceed, would the grant be transferable to like a different brewery, or it's just like them or nobody?
Yeah, this grant is, okay, before, so.
You're fine.
The city is applying on behalf of Brewery Omegang only.
Okay.
Getting back to your question, we cannot submit on behalf of the current property owner because they would not be doing the project. So it would only be for Brewery Omegang.
Okay.
If it's awarded and they don't move forward, we just deny the grant.
Okay.
It won't be a black eye for us, this kind of thing can happen,
Okay.
but we can't get it if we don't submit.
Is it, could
Yes,
I
go
ask another, is it the kind of thing that, because I agree, the letter was very non-committal. I think I want to hold on to the hope that they will do it. I know they are part of a larger corporation, and I think economically, like if I was a business owner, it'd make a lot of sense, but I know that building requires a lot of work, and there's a lot, like you said, that goes into it. So if for some reason they were unable to go forward and we continue down this path of trying to support someone else to purchase it, would it be something that we could reapply for on behalf of a different prospective buyer?
In a future round, yes.
Okay, cool. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Right.
Yes, Lance?
So why now? I mean, they're a large corporation. $500,000 to them is nothing. I mean, they haven't made an offer on the
Because-
property. I'm just curious of why now. I understand the grant has to be in at the end of the month, but why now?
There's a large purchase price. This money is for renovations. The thought is they are looking into other grants, soon that could help them with the acquisition cost, which is way more than the renovation cost. So it's quite a large project when you look at that. There's also, lessee interested in leasing a just this application. And if it can go, why now is they express interest in the building and they express interest to us in how they could have, how we could help. I think they may also be applying for some funding themselves that we can't apply for, but they can. So it's just a matter of the timing hit. It's a little bit of a rush because of the CFA application deadline, which March 31st. That's pushing things forward a little quicker than they may have wanted, but otherwise they'd have to wait a year. So it's now or they'd have to wait.
Okay, so you kind of touched on what I was going to get. My next question was, this isn't the only grant, so what other grants are the city of Oneonta going to be applying for on their behalf?
I don't know yet, but it's possible we might be applying for a CDBG, Business Economic Development Grant, which could either pay for or help pay for acquisition, or it could help pay for, equipment and working capital. That decision has not been made yet, and that has an open round, so that timing is dependent on them with a, asterisk on that. The CDBG program did not get funded federally, so if they're going for that program, they should go for it in the 2025 fiscal year, because we don't know what's gonna happen in the 2026 fiscal year with the program, so that may be coming up soon. I don't know yet. We're just talking about it.
Anything else?
I do.
Is there anybody else that has a thought for discussion? Scott, you have something?
Just trying to think, as part of the, looking at what's going on with rail service and stuff, if there's a way that we can make sure that we got some say, so that could be part of the passenger. Because we're watching Binghamton get theirs, we're watching what's going on up in Albany.
Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time before, hopefully.
Well, that would be great. The conversations I've had with the senator have not given me much hope that that's going to be something that happens anytime soon. But never say never. I think if we were to find ourselves in that position, I think we'd find a way to take advantage of it. You know, it'd be a matter of working with a building owner to take advantage of that. It's a, you know, it's a who knows what might happen sort of scenario, but I wouldn't suggest that we keep the building empty in anticipation
I'm not
perhaps.
suggesting that
No,
either,
I'm
but
sure you're not, but.
There's also a lot of what ifs or
Mhm.
maybes or, you know, there's a lot that you're trying to ask to put your hat on to, on something where you get a letter in front of you that says, well, we're not committing. You know, and I'm
Right.
sorry, but that letter does hold a lot of weight, Mark. When
It
somebody
should.
sits there and says, we're not committing to this, that holds a lot of weight.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, and
that's-
what I've
so-
come to find and yes, I'll be right with you, Shannon. What I've come to find in the year and a half or so that I've been working with Omegang is that the enthusiasm locally is off the charts. And it's a multinational corporation, and as such, they are a lot more slow about their commitment and very cautious about the expectations of those commitments. And that was, as I had a conversation with some of the locals, the Cooperstown, contacts, that was what they presented to me, is that the corporate folks just wanted to make certain that no one thought this is a 100% done deal, because they don't want to be embarrassed if they pull. Those are, in fact, here's words, they don't want to be embarrassed should they decide against. And they don't want their reputation to be damaged, or their relationship with the city. I told them, from my perspective, none of those things are really a concern. If they don't want the grant, if they decide in Belgium, which is where the corporate decision will be made, that they don't want the grant, they have toured Oneonta, they really like it here. The folks from Belgium were here, they toured it, they really like Oneonta. We feel like there's a pretty good likelihood, but they are very cautious. And I'm not in their boardroom to tell you, much more than that, but that's just the reality of it. Let me go to Shannon.
Oh, no, I just concur. I just took it as like, we want to apply, but this isn't a blood oath. Like Like, we're not throwing all these facts out here yet. Let's just see what kind of happens with applying.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's right. Go ahead, Kitty.
I think too, like, for me, I mean, I got the same idea, like, I can see that, I can also see where, you know, it would be really easy based on that for this to not happen, but I think for me, like, it's about committing to the idea that this is a good use of that space, and it's one way, and a present way to make that happen, and then if it doesn't happen, like, we just go from there, you know? And I think we could try, you know, to continue to activate that space, but it's like a really great opportunity, in my opinion, so.
Good ideas, if anything.
Anybody else? Yes, Don?
I just wanted to point out one other thing, that the city could potentially have some liability if the grant comes through and then we spend money on like an environmental review or other things, designs or whatever that would be, and then Omegang walks away, we would be stuck having paid those costs.
Judy?
They would have to commit before we pursued that. They would have to commit to the grant with a grant agreement, and we could write in that they would have to repay those costs. And those costs would come out of the grant, not out of the city's coffers. So if we have that in a grant agreement, that they would have to reimburse those costs if we don't continue the project, that, you know, that helps protect us. There's always risk on these projects, but you try to get your grant agreement with the developer as tight as you can to cover every possible way the project could go south.
And in that risk-reward equation. Go ahead, Don.
The risk is being assumed by the city, not Omegang.
Well, if you have it in a grant agreement, then the risk is being assumed by them. You could also take, because there's a number of things you could do. You could also do a second or third mortgage or whatever on the building to protect us. There's always ways to protect the city from that.
Scott?
We've done that like second, third mortgage before. We don't really ever get anything from it, so that's not really protection for us.
So it's not crucial.
But the other thing is, Mark, you said black eye to them. How many more black eyes are we supposed to take? I mean, we've been getting beat up pretty good here last couple of years.
I suppose,
And, you know, we go out on a limb to try to do a lot of stuff, but, you know, I'm kind of not seeing through my black eye as positive as you are right now.
sure.
So,
I hear you, Scott. We've had a few successes, obviously, in a row now. St. Mary's School, 195-205. We've had some successes. I think that when you're looking at options, from my perspective, the addition of Omegang to the city of Oneonta would be transformative. It would be such a major component of a revitalized downtown foot traffic, tourism traffic. Just there's an awful lot of value to the potential of them in that space. And then on the other side of it, I've been working with the Alvanzados for these 3 years and change, and I know that there really has not been the developer's interest or the renter's even interest, because they've even talked about leasing in the building. I spoke with Tony just a little while ago, and he asked, should I be here? And I said, no, I really don't think that's necessary. I'm second guessing myself right now, but it's, I think you're looking at a lot of potential, and on the other hand, status quo, which is right now an empty building. All right, so, do we have anybody else that would like to, Len, go ahead.
My question's for Judy. HCR was funded through the 25-26 budget, were they not?
HCR was, but this program itself is the New York Main Street program.
Right.
That's a state program, and
Right.
yes, that was funded.
For the 25-26 budget, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. What I was talking about was the other grant program that we may be applying for, which is a community development block grant program.
I understand that. I understand.
But this particular program has its funding in place, and as far as I know, there's no concern
Right.
about the program not continuing on.
And so,
indefinitely.
since this is a very conservative company, and they haven't even made an offer on the property yet, what's the harm in allowing them to move forward make that offer, make that commitment. I'm just not seeing the commitment. I mean, I reread that letter several times, and it just is so standoffish that I have my reservations of, I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse for such a large corporation.
Elaine, let me just take Elaine, please.
Oh, she needs the answer, that's fine.
Is there something you,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the, as Mark mentioned, the New York State staff here in Milford, has been very, very enthusiastic. That letter came at the nth hour on Friday. They, did tone down the motion. The motion was referencing that letter, and after conversations with them and emails with them, they did take that, connection from the motion to the letter out, because they were concerned, about how that could look for the grants. And they're interested in, pursuing grants. They're not just pursuing this grant. There is a major opportunity that they're pursuing with the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council. And I haven't seen that yet. It's due August 4th. We just started working on that. I think that this is a piece of the bigger puzzle that they're working on. And if we wait a year, it could tank the whole concept. It's my personal thought, having talked to them a number of times.
right, I would absolutely concur that this is a moment where we might be able to make this move, no guarantee, about a year from now.
Important piece.
Elaine?
Yeah, and on the flip side, I'm wondering, about the risk if we don't move forward. And I'm hearing the concerns about the tone of the letter. The other thing I'm thinking is that this is the first, hand that's been extended in this conversation, and it's our opportunity now to reach out and shake that hand. Otherwise, we're gonna be passing up on an opportunity. And I know that we have been asking for development to come in. This is an opportunity. The door is open for us to step through that and see where this grant goes. We know that there are not guarantees, and we know that there are some risks, but I really feel like right now, the risk lies in letting this opportunity go.
Yes, Lynn?
So I'm gonna assume they're also gonna be asking for a pilot.
That I don't know. I would assume they're gonna be asking for any assistance they can get on costs, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and
Not there
I've not
yet.
had a conversation with anybody about
Yeah,
pilots.
so I don't know. The building is not listed on the historic, registers. There is a potential that it could be listed. It takes some time to do that, and the historic tax credits are potential, but I don't know if they're pursuing them even yet.
Right.
It's very early in the process. It's just unfortunate that our consolidated funding application deadline is July 31st.
Right.
That's what's pushing this forward ahead a little bit.
Mhm.
And so that there's so many questions on it.
Mhm. Yes, Lynn?
And our local historic preservation committee, they haven't applied for that to be in the National Historic?
They wouldn't apply, the building owner would apply,
Okay.
and the building owner, current building owner has not applied.
But it is in our downtown National Historic District, or Historic District, I
Is
forget
it
how
in
they
the
have.
district or adjacent? I think it's in the district. It would be subject to our landmarks
Right.
committee
Right.
approval. That's a question for Stephen, but it would be eligible for the National or State Historic Register. It's just never been listed.
Right.
And those are all steps that the Long Gang would need to decide as they proceed.
I'm glad to hear that it's not gonna be a black eye, because I've heard that many a time where if we don't accept the grant that we apply for, it's a black eye. So it was
Well,
good to hear that that's not the
Yeah,
case in this.
there's certain reasons why it wouldn't be a black eye for the city. For instance, we had a recent program that we had the funding. There's a number of reasons that, the applicants, or the authorities decided not to pursue. That's not a black eye for the city whatsoever, and we had some costs on that the funding agency allowed us to pay for through the grant. So not, the state doesn't look at that as the fault of the city, especially if you've put in a solid project and you've shown that they can, you know, they've got the finances to come up with a match and, they are committed at the time of application. If things happen later that make them pull back, that wouldn't be a black eye from the city, for the city. A black eye for us would be if we failed.
Right.
Right.
And we wouldn't fail on this application because we know what we're doing. We've done a number of these different types of applications with the state funding agency. And we just did a $2.6 million project with the DRI through this particular funding agency. So they've got a lot of respect for us, and it wouldn't be a black eye at all. It's just, it can occasionally happen where something won't move forward even if you get the award.
And so, to Scott's point, how would you form that conversation moving down the road, that if we say yes tonight for this grant, and we would like to have, you know, a small piece of that station being part of the pickup point, just so that it's part of that historic area, how would you form that conversation?
I think you'd just be talking to Omegang about that, and it's also, there's also other property on
Right.
Market Street as
Right.
well, not just that particular property. So I think there's options, and I would assume Omegang would be receptive because I could only help them.
It would certainly help them, yes.
Bring tourists right to their back door.
Sure. Sure. I think that any conversation I've had with the senators on the on the Transportation Committee has not been indicative of there being in any short time passenger rail in the city. Not to say it wouldn't happen. It would be great if it did. But to Judy's point, any business that is located on those railroad tracks there would benefit, and especially if it's a business like Omegang, would benefit. And we do have adjoining properties that we can have conversations with on the off chance that rail passenger service actually does happen. It could. I don't see it happening anytime soon. But the other thing, as long as I've got the floor real quick, I just want to just kind of keep in people's mind's eye the construction of a letter that has caused some concern. So Belgium, Missouri, and Cooperstown are the players here, and so there's various input from various folks in a multinational corporation, and some of that is coming from across the Atlantic. So what they wanted to do was make certain that we weren't going into this with a false expectation. They were maybe arguably a little heavy-handed in their presentation of that, and our conversations with them afterward, we were able to make that point, and they said, oh, yeah, you're right, which is why we've modified the motion from what you originally saw with that couple of lines removed referencing the letter. So just so that you're clear about, many cooks, small kitchen, sometimes it's not exactly the product that you want, handed, and that's maybe what that letter was a combination of a couple of people's concerns in different parts of the country and even a different country. Does that make sense?
Sure. I'm just concerned that we're gonna miss that opportunity that maybe the funding does come in. And I don't think it's being next to it, it would be part of that, that historic site.
For
Seems like it would
rail-
be a real
for
win
rail?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the city of Oneonta, it would be a huge win.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would not be receptive to working something out where they're able to bring people into there.
Establishment.
Yes, and in fact, one of the components, there's a Taste of New York piece that would be a natural connector to all of that. So, there's a lot of reasons to think. And plus, I've been working with them for a year and a half, maybe, something like that. And the Cooperstown component of the company, they are just couldn't be more excited to be working with Oneonta. So I feel like you have a really good partner potentially, and you are dealing with a multinational corporation, but you're also dealing with a local management team. So who are committed to Oneonta, really committed to Oneonta. They love the idea that around the corner is Demoski Field, and 4,000 people that you could put in for a concert, and they love concerts. So there's a lot of upside, obviously, your points about, the potential rail service, notwithstanding, I think that that's a conversation that would happen in that moment, and my money would certainly be on there, thinking that's an accommodation that we make.
So when does this grant come out?
Judy?
So the deadline is July 31st, and the award should be sometime in November or December. And then, once the awards are made, within another few weeks to a month or so, the grant agreement from the state comes to us, and that's at the point at which we would need a commitment from the gang. So this one, January, February, we need to have them committed.
So from your perspective, you feel that this is the linchpin to them committing to the project?
I feel like, I don't know if it's that, if this is the only linchpin. I feel this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that they're putting together to make this project happen.
I would agree, Judy, but it is also, a positive vote here, an affirming vote here is something that will have some little ripple effect, I expect, but a negative vote would have probably a significant effect.
Yeah, I think a negative vote would end it, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Especially at the national level.
Right.
Because they wouldn't understand the reasoning behind a negative vote.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true.
It's kind of a linchpin.
Well, yeah, there you go. Let me go to Elaine, please.
It's
Yeah.
not the only one.
No, it's not the only, but certainly it's.
I think, like what I'm hearing is that it is a part of the puzzle, but if we are concerned about the tone that came through in a letter where they were trying to explain their perspective, I think we should be concerned about how they would view a downvoting of, a proposal that, again, carries very little risk and, high potential of opportunity, and the very kind of opportunity that this council has, been asking for in this area.
Have we any other discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Mosher Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Walsh Russo.
Aye.
Councilmember McHugh.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yeah.
Councilmember Matheson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, folks. Next time Tony Almanzado asks if he should show up, I'm saying yes, as it turns out. All right, we will move on to, I just lost a year. We move on to the 2024 year-end, 2025 year-to-date financial highlights. Finance Director Virginia Lee, please take the podium.
Folks listening at home.
Oh, yeah, no, I know, totally. I think we have people here who might want to make public comment. And I
There was
saw it on the
just
agenda, but.
one, and
Did
I
I
asked her
miss
to
it?
come, yeah, she was here, and I asked her if she'd come back on the 5th.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jake.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to go over to the council the 2024 financial highlights. As you know, we just finished up the field audit work for 24, and it went very well, and I'm very happy to say that the auditors have not found any concerns. So we're going to move that process on to creating the audited financial statements, and once I get those to the auditors, they'll audit that and then let me know if there's anything that they need to change. We're hoping to have those financials done by probably mid-September, and then the auditor will be here sometime in October to present to council. But let me just go over some highlights. I'm not going to go over this in detail. First, you found your budget books on your desks. There's a lot of information in here, so I'm just going to kind of go over the quick highlights. Please read it at your leisure. Call me with any questions. We'll be discussing all this information in the future, but I just want to highlight some aspects. So for the for the tax levy, I just wanted to show that we returned 178 to the county for tax enforcement, which is about the norm if you look at the past 4 years. And then I also detailed for you all of our pilot agreements. The one that got added to the list is the Ford Block Building for 186 to 212 Main Street. And for the pilot revenues, the estimate for 2025 is $282,000. For 26, that's going to go up to $307,000. The general fund budget increases throughout 2024. As I have it summarized there for you on page 2, it has to do with the 2023 purchase orders that get re-encumbered into the year. And then I listed the various budget amendments that we did for restricted donations and public safety and employee benefit reserves and streets and sidewalks. And that list is there for your refresher. The 2024 revenues, what I did is I listed these in highest to lowest list on page 3. And you will see that sales tax came in at $6.2 million, or 32% of our general fund revenues. And our tax levy was 5.2, or 26.81%. We talked last year during the budget process that ideally this should be the opposite. Our tax levy should be higher than our sales tax. And the reason being is our tax levy is a guaranteed number. Our sales tax can fluctuate depending on what happens in the economy. So I just want us to keep that in mind when we look into the future. I also want to point out that we received $259,000 for the state aid, the temporary increase in our AIM. That was a 2-year program. It has not been renewed yet for 26, so I do not know if, I've reached out to the NICOM, so I do not know if it's in consideration again. But as of right now, that 2-year program has expired, and we did get it for 24 and 25. So I also detailed for you the general fund expenditures in different categories, and you'll see that salaries was 42.6%, fringe benefits was 26.8%. Again, we'll get into more detail as the budget process goes on. On page 4, I showed you the sales tax history. As I said, 2024 came in at $6.2 million, or an increase 3.98% from the previous year. Through May of 25, we've received $2.7 million, which has increased 4.6% from the previous year. And the cannabis tax on adult use of cannabis, we realized $145,000 for the year of 24, and to date we've only received one quarterly payment of $34,000. Ambulance billing history, you will see that in 2024 the total calls went up from 2275 to 2387, and these numbers are always subject to change depending on adjustments to billings and things like that. So when I do this report again, you may see the number of calls for 24 going up just a little bit. The fire protection contract that we have in the town we changed the contract to be flat dollar increase instead of formula based. So you will see that for 24 it went up by $50,000, which was 3.76%. And I showed you the contract term that goes up to 2028. We received another good year of interest earnings. As you know, the interest rates returned during 23 and 24. So we received over $233,000 of interest for the unrestricted areas, and we received almost $290,000 of interest on our restricted reserves. Parking fines went up about 6.5% from 23 to 24, but you'll see that that number was really only about $5,000 because we collect about $87,000 in parking fines. The bulk of that revenue is from snow removal tickets. And the city, as I said already, that the state aid is the same since 2011 outside of the additional temporary aid payment of the $259. I am very hopeful, and NICOM is really working hard on our behalf to make this, have the state modify their formula and make it a permanent adjustment for us. So we'll see what transpires.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So with the state budget already passing, it's already passed, right?
For 25, 26.
Don't we consider those AIM funds non-existent?
For their their year goes from April to March. We're going to receive the $259,000, but that's going to be 2025 revenue.
Not 26.
Not 26,
Okay.
correct.
Sorry.
And I gave you the history on salaries and fringe benefits, and you'll see there from 23 to 24, the salaries went up $789,000 or 12.89%. That was a result of, one, filling more positions, and two, the increase in the contracts for salaries. Overtime went up $137,000, 16% from the previous year. And I gave you history of the overtime going back from 16 to 24, and I noted that between 2017 and 2024, the police incurred $1.9 million, or about 32% of the overtime, and the fire incurred $3.5 million, or about 60% of the overtime costs. Health insurance, you'll see that our 24 costs went down by $332,000. As I reported when we joined the consortium, our health insurance costs citywide went down about $500,000. So this was the city's portion. And that helped us fund the salary increases that we negotiated with the unions. Retirement costs, you'll see that that went up about 28%. It wasn't just related to our salary increases, but the state itself raised the contribution rates quite dramatically for 2024. I have not received the estimated rates for next year yet, but hopefully by the next meeting I will. They usually come out in August. So the general fund balance, you'll see that as of 2024, we have restricted fund balance of $5.6 million, non-spendable of $104,000. Non-spendable is items that we have already paid for or invested in, and we can no longer turn that into cash. So that would be, for example, our airport fuel inventory, or our prepaid expenses for retirement, or any type of maintenance agreements that we might have prepaids for. And the unrestricted is just that 11.3. So the total is 17 million, but then what you need to do is you have to figure out what's available. So we take out outstanding purchase orders, and we take out what we committed into the 2025 budget. So that leaves an available balance of 13.8 million. So what I would like to do is I want to jump to Appendix A. So if you go back to page 16, please. What I did for each fund is I summarized from 22 to 23, 23 to 24, and showing you how the fund balance categories changed. And then what I did on the next page is I showed you the categories of where it happened. But let's discuss page 16 first. So you will see that the restricted fund balance from 23 to 24 went down $454,000. And that is on purpose, because that's why we set the reserves up, is to use the money to pay for our large pieces of equipment. Then you will see that the appropriated or the assigned values changed in value from 23 to 24, which affects the unassigned value. But you'll see the unassigned value went up $2 million. Well, why did that happen, right? So, and you'll see that I summarized underneath, I have it color-coded for you, that you can follow the restricted and unrestricted changes between categories. Interest earned, other revenue sources, expenditures, or change in value of the unspendable amount. But let's figure out why we budgeted a $1.8 million deficit, but we ended up with a surplus. So if you go to page 17, you will see I did a schedule here. The appropriated fund balance for 2024 was 1.834. So why didn't we spend that? Why didn't we have to use it when our actuals came in? So I showed you the revenues. So this is actuals versus budget. So our permits came in at almost 24,000 higher than the budget. Our interest earnings came in about 34,000 more than we anticipated. Sale of equipment, about 47,000. I don't usually budget for sale of equipment very high because I do not know what the auctions will bring. Interfund transfers is 137,000. Those were excess bond proceeds. Those funds will not be available in 2026. So when we borrow money and the money exceeds what the total project costs, we have to reserve it and use it towards our debt payment. That money is held in the debt service fund, and then we transfer it over to the appropriate funds when the debt payments are made.
So the 137,000 was based on bonds that we didn't capitalize all?
Correct. We borrowed more than we spent. It was on the street lighting project.
Oh, okay.
The tax on adult use cannabis, we did not have that in the budget at all because we had no data to know what to estimate. And we adjusted that in the 25 budget, and we had budgeted $100,000. Ambulance charges went up 192,000, and I pointed out earlier that the number of calls went up, but also the average price, average payment per call also went up. We collected about an extra $100,000 in cash payments as compared to the year before. The state aid other, that's the temporary aid of $259,000. That was not in the budget because we did not have any guarantee that it was going to be made. The other public safety income, that is the code enforcement fees. That just was more than what we had anticipated in the budget. That, I usually base that on an average of the historical history, and it depends on which houses have violations and how far they go. And I just want to mention something to the committee because I know various committees are talking about the code enforcement fees. The resident or the homeowner has 60 days to meet the qualifications or the terms of code that they need to meet. They have 60 days to do that with no fees at all. Then, on the 61st day, it's a $250 fee. And then it accrues $10 a day after that. So when the fees get up into the thousands of dollars, it's because they have let it go for a year or two or three. So I just wanted all the council members to have that information. So they actually have 60 days with absolutely no fee. So code enforcement fees are basically set by the resident or the homeowner by how quickly they react. And then the sales tax. We had estimated 5.4 at that time. Again, we did not have enough data to increase the budget anymore on what I would call a conservative basis, and that came in over $882,000 more than we had budgeted. And you'll see when we get into the 26 budget conversation that what my suggestion is for next year. But for 2025, as you know, we raised our budget from 5.4 million to 5.8. And then all the other categories, there were several categories that just added up to the 131,000. So that's the revenue side. Expenditure side, we saved in salaries and fringe benefits. You'll see here how I have it listed, 849,000. That is basically due to vacancies and or when I budget for a vacancy, I budget for a family plan on health insurance. If the new employee comes in on a buyout or a single plan, that will save thousands of dollars in the budget. So it's a combination of those two items. And then I listed the other categories for you, 125,000 equipment. We did budget approvals, budget adjustment approvals for that additional equipment expense. What that was for was when something we had budgeted for came in over what our estimate was at the time of budget. Or it could have been an unexpected piece of equipment that we needed to budget for. And so when you take the $2 million extra in revenue, $1.2 million in savings and expenditures, that brings us to the 1.5 change of the surplus. So my recommendation is to take that 1.5 surplus and transfer it to our restricted reserves. So if you flip back to our narrative, you will see that I'm recommending that we transfer $500,000 each to the highway equipment reserve, the public safety reserve, and the streets and sidewalks reserve. And I have a schedule later on in the presentation of what our reserve balances are, and you will see that all three of these funds are in need of being replenished. So talking about the fund balance of the city, of the unrestricted, if you take the 2024 available unrestricted fund balance, it's 47.99% of our 2025 adopted budget, excluding the restricted expenditures. Our policy is that it be 35%. So you'll see that our fund balance is still in a very strong position. And so transferring the 1.5 million to the restricted reserves will then bring our unrestricted fund balance to 40.43% of our adopted budget. Again, a very strong number.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So you did five, and five.
Yes.
Is that just to be fair, those three reserves?
No,
or-
you're going to see later on why.
I'm jumping
I have,
ahead, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I have a schedule on the restricted reserves, and all three of these need monies. And when we look at the future projects in the capital plan, you'll see that we're going to need money, especially in the streets and sidewalks, and the public safety, and the highway equipment. But we can talk about that when we get to that schedule, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a quick summary on the general fund for 2024. Does anybody have any questions?
So by utilizing that surplus within those three funds, you said it would get us to 43%?
40.43%, yeah.
So that's just 5% over what they're recommending.
Yeah.
And that still gets us within the window of acceptance?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. Our policy is 35%, so 40% is very good.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. We're going to come back to you after that, okay?
Okay, yep, there's just the water and sewer, but if you want me to
No,
stop for now?
please.
That's fine.
Water and sewer, go
Okay.
ahead.
Water and sewer, I'm just gonna quickly highlight here the non-college sales for water increased from 23 to 24, 3.7%, and the college sales increased by 17.63%. The disparity between these percentage increases from non-college sales to college sales indicates that the rate structure needs to be studied with the aid of the Water Works program. I know that I had told council that I was hoping to get a presentation to you by early this summer, or late spring on Waterworth. Just due to workload and staff vacancies, I haven't. We're almost there to present it to you, but it's not there yet. We're hoping to do that. I think it's on the schedule in September, right? I think. So again, the water fund balance had a surplus of $211,000, which shows that it's going in the right direction. And again, there's a lot of information here. Please read it. Let me know any questions that you have. So I'm going to jump to the sewer fund. Again, very similar to the water. Non-college sewer rents went up 3.9%. College sewer rents went up almost 18%. Also, as you know, we've got a contract with the town for sewer services, and for 2024, it went up 22.59%, 61,000. This is based on a formula. That has to do with measurements that they take every month as far as what's coming in from the town pipes. And the sewer fund, that had a surplus of 469,000. Again, it's going in the right direction. Enterprise fund, the only thing I want to highlight with the enterprise fund is that we received a $1.1 million CARES grant during COVID. We used about $230,000 in 2023. In 2024, we used 405, which leaves a balance of 499, which is included in the 25 budget. And we've also been awarded operating aid for 24 and 25, each at $246,750 for those 2 years. And we're allowed to roll it 1 year forward if we do not need it for that particular year. And then I also gave you a list of the capital projects so you can just be familiar with what city staff has been working on since 2023. And then at attachment A was the general fund balance summary, attachment B, water fund, and attachment C is the sewer fund. And I know I'm going quickly, but I know you guys have a lot on the agenda for tonight.
Let me get done.
Sure.
This building, where is that building?
Asa Allison Building is the armory. And I do apologize, I did not get the 2025 update ready. I just ran out of time, so at our next budget meeting, I will have that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny. All right. Looking at our agenda, we want to look at, not going to take a ton of time with the strategic plan, but there's homework. Greg, you put together a spreadsheet. Is that a link that will be sent to folks? Or, yes, no?
This is what we have right now.
This is what we have right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's okay.
It's like, I'm ahead of you. All right, so if you guys recall, we went through trying to determine what our strategic priorities were, and we arrived at those that you see in the gray bars and those headers. And then having done that work, we then said, okay, let's drill down a little bit and kind of inform what that is with some of the key strategies, the key priorities within each of those modules context. So I don't know that I am inclined to go through every one of these with everyone. I am going to be asking you folks to give some consideration to the next step. I think that's really what we want to do, and I'd like to, for the purposes of keeping this meeting as much as we can, in gear, I'd like you to take a look at the various headers and the various key strategies that we determined. And if you could, and we talked about maybe Greg having this emailed to the two of us, if you could take a look at now the third level. What we want to do is, if we can look at, and this gives you an opportunity to really kind of be creative in your outlook around what things the city might need or might not need, even within these individual contexts. So if you are able to provide us for both Greg's and my edification, and then we'll share and have discussion here in council, we'll be able to maybe determine some maybe more unique strategies than we were even aware of as a group that we might want to pursue that kind of moves forward some of these key strategies. And we have an example. You want to give them the example that you were showing me a little bit ago?
Sure. So, as the mayor was saying, this year our intent is to develop that final layer, level 3 of the strategic plan, which really I think are the specific actions that we can then tie to our budget requests and can be measured over time to see how we're doing to progress these strategies. So, as the mayor said, we want to seek suggestions, recommendations for what those might be from council. We're also going to have department heads provide those as well. And what I'm going to ask them to do is to provide, if they suggest a strategic level 3 action, as we're calling them, a specific thing, they want to tie that to their budget requests in some way, so we can see how the budget is funding these strategies. So, as far as an example, I emailed earlier today about a communication platform that I'd like to utilize. We can talk a little bit more about what that is, Flashvote. So in that case, if you were to look at the second page, community inclusiveness, number 2 is thoughtfully informed, respectful, and equitable engagement, communication, and transparency amongst all parties involved in city affairs. So an action that might help that pursuit of that strategy is to implement a scientific survey to engage and solicit feedback from city residents to inform the development of the city's budget, the strategic plan, and the comprehensive plan update. And complete at least 6 surveys per year, so there's some sort of a measurable there. We think this can help gather input from the community that otherwise we might not get, and give us another tool to evaluate what our priorities are as we're making decisions in the budget process, as well as strategic plan, which again, the budget and the strategic plan are really, should be interlinked and one's informed the other. And then the comprehensive plan update is something we have coming up over the next couple of years as well. So that would be one example. That's the type of, it's a 1 or 2 sentence description of what we're looking to accomplish. It can be fairly specific. It can be as specific as that, implement 6 surveys per year, or some other metric you might think of to measure our progress. So we don't have to come up with them right now, or we could hear from each of you now, or we can come up with them over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would say, given the number of individual priorities that we've outlined here, and I think the time that is required to really kind of understand each one of them, because we have to kind of reacquaint ourselves with them. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to ask that you spend a little time over the course of the next week or so taking a look and seeing what you see that sparks an idea that we should consider as a council that might be impactful to the budget, one way or the other. Does that make sense? And is everybody on board with it? When you
Can
look
you
at me?
flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. Well, kind of what Greg just did there. So we're looking at, in Greg's example, we were looking at community inclusiveness, and so that thoughtfully informed, respect, and equitable engagement piece, how do we make that happen? And so sitting there, talking to your friends, talking, to your constituents, you guys got any idea how we might be able to make that happen? Yeah, well, we could do something with a survey and ask people what they think, and if it's something that is broad-based and we get a lot of response to, we'll start to see some more valuable information coming to us, and we'll look at some level of accountability around the metrics of that. And so there's an example. Or it could be, and now I'm just talking off the top of my head here, vital downtown economic development that focuses on the retention of a diverse population. And so it could be, what we really need here is, we really need festivals, that are ethnically oriented. I'm just, literally, I just picked that off the top of my head. So I was like, we need that. So it's something, it could be as simple as that. And so how does that get paid for? Maybe it doesn't. Is it a part of the budget? It's not a part of the budget. But those kind of, so we can have that conversation and maybe have some sort of a consensus built on our strategic plan as to, some of the action items that we might take that are going to wind up, kind of moving us more forward within the context of, hey, but what can we afford, right? Does that answer your question? Okay, great. So what do you guys think? Is that something that we can do? What, you're laughing, Scott?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So can we, so today is the 28th. Can we maybe pull some ideas together over the course of the next couple of weeks and just email them to Greg and I, or Greg and me? And then we'll pull them together and we'll have conversation, and some of this, things thrown at the wall, some of them stick, if we can afford them. And that's, again, why we wanted to have this be part of the budget process. Sound good? Anybody think not? Okay, great. So that takes us then to the budget timeline. And Greg, you've done some work today, and you've shared that already via email with folks, but do you want to go over that?
Yeah, and I picked some dates that were very similar to what we did last year. Obviously, depending on folks' availability, we can adjust some of these. Many of them are lining up with regular council meetings, but if we just want to go through it, we're meeting tonight, talk about our overview of the budget, and our next meeting could be, I'm suggesting August 14th, because there aren't other meetings that evening. I believe that's a Thursday.
I wouldn't be able to make that.
I was looking at the week of August 11th as when we would like to have that. I just kind of picked a date that looked like it had some openings. That would be a follow-up with Ginny. She's going to present some more on 2025 year-to-date. If you have other questions that you form as you're looking over the information she shared tonight, we would have a Q&A with her. Obviously, if you had any specific information or questions you wanted to share ahead of the meeting, that would be great. Email those to Ginny and she can prepare answers, or just ask them at the meeting. We might hopefully have an updated comparison, city comparison data. You will recall last year we looked through a number of other municipalities in New York State that were somewhat comparable in different ways to Oneonta, and compared some of our financial data and operational data. We'll try to update that, share that. And then, as we just discussed, we'll continue discussing the strategic plan. And then,
Do you have legislative for the 11?
Can we move it?
Just because that whole week is trash. Really, the 11th is the best day. Are you good on the 11th?
I
think
think
so.
I would stay that whole week.
Oh.
So, Greg, so today's the 28th. We've got some time until the next meeting, potentially August 14th. I know that there's Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting. I believe that's the same day. That might, mean
Well,
something
if
that
it's
we have
14th, I'll be
to work
missing.
around. So what I'd like to ask folks to do, I'm going to just ask
Three of
folks
us
to.
can't make it on the 14th.
Excuse me, Shannon. So what I'd like to do is, if I could have folks maybe go through this calendar, and if there are dates that folks cannot make, maybe the thing to do is to kind of let us know and see what we can do about arranging through Carrie's, so maybe Carrie, myself, and Greg, dates that you cannot make. Mike's not able to make tonight. There's gonna be days that we're not gonna be able to get all 8 council members. We wanna get as many as is possible, but there may not be perfect dates, and so please just go through them, and those dates that are gonna be problematic, let us know and see if we can come up with something on an individual basis that winds up taking care of the issue for the majority of council members. That works for you?
Sure, and as far as the immediate next meeting, we could send out a poll with a few different dates.
Survey?
Yep, a survey.
Yes.
Of council members, a panel, to see what works best for the majority.
And does this schedule keep us in line with the charter, Greg?
Yeah, the charter indicates that the budget process will be initiated typically the second meeting in July or a special meeting like we're doing today. The key dates for that, I believe the charter says that department head budget requests are due the end of August 31st. I've got on here September 5th. I think that's reasonable, and typically we have some continual conversations with department heads as we develop that anyway, so I don't see that as an issue, unless the council does. Obviously the key thing is first meeting in December. If you start at the end and work backwards, that's when we have to adopt the budget. Typically the week before that, we have to have a public hearing on the budget.
I'm sorry, I just want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Because that was the part that I picked up on.
What?
So is that 4 days going to be enough for Ginny and you to go through all those requests and have it in format for the council on the 9th?
No, the 9th will not be a draft budget presentation. That's going to be on October 15th. So on the 9th, I have a discussion of the BRC referenced earlier, on the September 2nd, based on the Budget Review Committee's final meeting being scheduled in August, and yet my understanding from Elaine and the committee is they're going to review what their recommendations are. I think at that regular September 2nd council meeting, you all can present those to the council and then have further discussion about those on September 9th, which would be a special meeting where we would have sort of an update where we're at and more discussion amongst the council about what strategic planning, level 3 actions, that sort of thing, do we want to move forward with. We would have our requests in from department heads by that time, but then it gives us about a month to turn those into an actual draft budget.
So you believe you and Ginny will have us a draft budget by October 9th?
Yes.
Based on the department head's recommendations and city, or the council?
Right. And hopefully some public feedback as well.
Yeah,
If we do
that'd be the
if we do
idea.
the survey.
Right, if we do the survey.
Or if we don't, obviously, however else we make it public input from comments and council member interactions. A key difference from last year, otherwise it's generally the same, is the addition of the strategic plan as something that I'd like the council and staff to work on, and really focus on making that something that's a practical document that we use as our guide in implementing, the objectives of the city. So tying that to the budget, I think, is gonna help do that. So if we have our pyramid of level 1, 2, and 3 strategic plan built around the same time frame as the tentative budget, we could have the council vote to approve that that strategic plan, and then go on and approve the budget.
It should really wind up being the skeletal structure that the budget gets hung on, so. Do you have anything further? Having worked backwards, everybody's satisfied with the calendar in essence, and again, we'll look at individual dates that are gonna be problematic for people, and we'll see if we have, a good number that are having problems with them. We'll try to make those adjustments. Lynn?
So when will we hear from Ginny and Greg about a recommendation? I'm concerned that October 9th is gonna pin us too close to November 4th to wait that long. I'd really like to hear from you guys. I know that you have an understanding of your departments of what the tax levy rate increase will be.
I think, so I should have mentioned that. So at the next meeting, August 14th or whatever it ends up being, that is when we will have a discussion of what I call primary budget parameters. We talked about those last year, and we set what are the council's expectations to see in the draft budget, and you know what does that look like? Is that no use of fund balance? Last year we were asked to present two different budgets. I'd like to avoid that this year and have one expectation of a draft budget. We'll present that. There can always be changes to increase or decrease. What is the expectation for tax levy increase? What is the expectation for our estimate for sales tax? Jenny will recommend what is our typical conservative estimate for sales tax. Does the council feel like taking on less conservative or more conservative estimate? Those kind of questions we'll explore at the next meeting. So then hopefully if the council is in full agreement, or if not, let's take a vote and say, okay, staff, prepare the draft budget with these particular parameters included, and then we'll go from there, but that's what you'll see on the 9th.
That works?
Yes, I don't know if anybody else wanted.
I didn't see any other.
Okay, so, I think a good example is we went back and forth about 1.6, 1.8, that we needed to raise up last year, and here tonight you presented where we came back with 1.5, right? So I'm very curious of where you two are in relation to the 26 budget, given that we came back, and we've typically gotten 1.1, 1.2. I know sales tax has really brought us up there, but now we're into 1.5, and you explained why or how we got there. So for me, I'm really curious of where you guys are gonna be, because if we need to have one of those surveys done to let get the feedback from the public about we're gonna be jumping up to 34% tax levy rate increase, I'd rather do it sooner than later.
Right, well, I think, doesn't that maybe, if we're set on this and the idea that we'll go through dates, doesn't that maybe bring us now to our 2026 budget outlook? Is that something that you feel comfortable getting up and talking about? You've gotten, your vocal cords have been rested?
No,
Did we have, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question, because it kind of touches on what Len was saying about the $1.6 million. Like, so I know that and please forgive me, like, I've been doing this for many years, but I'm still a neophyte. So, the way I look at things is absolutely different than you do, which is why I value you. So if I look at our general fund only, and I see the adopted budget at 19.3 million, and the adjusted budget at 21.2 million. And then I compare those to our revenues. One of the things that we were looking at last year was a budget where we were able to fully fund it with the revenues. And so I compared those numbers, and if we take the revenues versus the adopted budget, our surplus is only $222,000. And then the deficit versus the adjusted budget is 1.6. So I just wondered if you could expand on that a little bit.
when I get into the next set of schedules, I'm gonna hit right on.
That'll make sense? Good, thank you.
Yes, Don?
I'd like to go back to this schedule. Do you have a time you want to have the special meetings at?
Well, that's a very good question. Have we determined times?
Because that would help
strategizing?
council members when we.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I have not obviously proposed specific times, but we can discuss. I think 5 o'clock is a pretty good time, depending unless there's other meetings that need to be finished first or after, but. Does 5 o'clock generally work for council members?
Yeah.
Meetings that might run a little bit longer than.
Yeah, generally, with, again, the expectation that it might not work for somebody, and we'll try to adjust as much as we can.
As long as it's Tuesday. But there's like 3 I will
All right, so Ginny, would you give us the 2026 budget outlook as we look?
Right, so we'll go back to your beautiful binders, I hope you like them.
They're
So-
particularly nice this year,
Yeah.
I have to say, if you look at it.
Thank you. Brittany helped me with all of the, so we had a busy day putting things together. So I want to thank her publicly for all of her assistance. You'll see that I've kind of got this also set up for future insertions, but first section is for the 24. Next meeting, I'll be giving you a 25 tab with the 25 highlights and hopefully 25 projections. We'll insert that into your binders. You have a section on OPT, And we actually presented this at the Budget Committee meeting. This OPT section, it gives a 5-year history, and it also gives a 5-year projection. And it shows how the CARES funding and the 5311 operating aid will carry OPT for the next 2 years, with a small deficit being realized in 2027. And so at the Budget Committee meeting, we discussed different options. The New York State is looking for the city to merge with the county possibly, to do a regional or a county-wide transit system. But when we get into the OPT discussion, when Dave Hoteling is here, we can discuss that in more detail. There's also some graphs that I will give great credit to Greg putting these together. He took ridership details by different routes and provided a visual graph for you. And you can see the trends and how we have improved, but we're still not up to pre-COVID numbers. And the city staff believes that we probably will not get back up to pre-COVID based on the college student activity and their change in habits for the night rides. So I also provided a detail, because one of the major expenses in OPT is their bus maintenance through Central Garage. So I gave you a 5-year history on the parts, labor, and sublet. Sublet is when the mechanics are not able to do some certain type of work, either if it's body work from an accident or a warranty work on an engine or something like that, it has to go out to a third party. So then I would like, I just want to point out the different tabs for right now. The next section is our discussion for tonight. Then there is the Budget Review Committee presentations. These were the answers to the questions of all the department heads that went in front of the Budget Review Committee. And so I wanted you to have those in your budget book so you could read them at your leisure. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Right now, there's 2 additional tabs that are going to get filled in. One is the graphs. I was hoping to have the graphs done tonight, but I just ran out of time. And so they will be ready for the next meeting, and you'll just be able to insert them right here. The request tab is just that. When we provide you on October 9th all of the detail, if you remember those large printouts that has all the department heads requesting them, that's going to go right in there. We're also going to make a section for the strategic plan and also the capital plan. So that's basically the layout out of your budget work books or your information.
Can I just add, because I love that you put all the summaries from the Budget Review Committee, and I think I've mentioned this before, but there are a ton of details in the minutes too, so I also encourage people to go back and look at those.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can always print the minutes out. That's what I did for the fire department. The fire department minutes are in there, so I can also print the minutes out if you would like, and
If everybody would find that
I can
helpful,
insert
that
them
might- Yeah.
into the books.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the packet that I have prepared for tonight to start the 26 budget conversation is a lot of data. It gives you a lot of history. I don't expect you to absorb it all tonight because there's a lot to read, but I just want to go over the highlights so you can understand when you do sit down to read it what my goal was in preparing these documents. So on page 1, this is the tax cap formula for 2026. I want you to know that the state has not finalized the formula, so this is subject to change. But as of right now, the tax cap calculates out to be $152,195, or 2.74%. Then after, on page 2, I gave you the tax levy history going back for 25 years. Shows the average since 2001 to be 2.5%. 21 to 25, it's 3.358%, and 23 to 25, it is 3.79%. So that just gives you a little bit of history on the levies itself. So I wanted to compare those percentages to the cost of living. So I inserted some new information for you that you haven't seen in previous budget presentations, but I gave you the CPI reports from the Labor Statistics Bureau showing all cities, and I showed you the average of the cost of living ranging from 4.3% up to 5% for the years shown. But then what I like to do is on the next page, I narrow it down to Northeast, because that's where we are. So you'll see that in 2020, a 12-month period, it was 1.4%. 21, it was 5.9%. 22, it was 6.1%. 23, it was 2.6%, and 3.5%. So if you look at those percentages of cost of living and compare to the tax levy increase, you'll see that there's some differences in the numbers. So if our costs are going up, you know, between 3 and 6%, but our tax levy is not, that shows a little bit of a gap. So I just wanted to give you that statistical information to study and think about when you decide how to go forward. So page 5 is tax cap limit formulas, which I showed the 26. Then I also show you with the, our taxable assessed value for next year's tax bills increased a little bit. It's now up to $496,809,000. So I showed you what the rates would be depending on which number you pick as far as the tax levy itself. The average residential home is valued at about $132,000. So I showed that calculation, how much their bill would go up per year for that particular number, whichever one that you focus in on. So page 6, we've talked about this before, but I wanted to stress this to you. I said, what if, right? What if every year the city went to the tax cap since its inception going back to 2012? Where would our tax levy be, and what would have been the annual increases for the city residents? So you'll see on the left-hand side is what we've actually done. And then on the right-hand side is what if. So had we gone to the limit every year, you would see that the increases would have ranged from really a negative on the 1 year, but basically 1% up to about 3% per year. And it would have been a steady, the slow and steady approach of increasing the tax levy, avoiding adjustments of like the 5.71 that we did last year, and you probably will be considering something similar for this year. So I just wanted you to have this information so you could fully understand that the decisions that you make today, how it can affect the future. And also, had that happened, had we gone to the tax cap every year since 2012, we would have $3.5 million more now than we do currently. Okay, next section is sales tax. And you have seen these schedules before, and it's showing you the history going back to 2016. And it shows you the percentage changes between the months and also the year-to-date, accumulations. And so on page 7, I give you all the 12 months. On page 8, I'm just comparing January through May for 24 and January through May of 25. So as of right now, year-to-date, we're 4.6% higher than we were in 2024, or about 120,000 more. So then I say, okay, on page 9, you'll see where I say, okay, as of June, what if the sales tax we collect from June to December is the same as 22, 23, or 24? And so I have those highlighted in yellow for you. So it ranges from 6.1 to 6.4. Again, just information for you to consider what you want to budget for sales tax. So page 10 is my recommendation. If you look at the 3-year averages, if 25 was the same as 22, 23, 24, the average is basically almost 6.2 million. So I am comfortable suggesting to the council to consider budgeting $6 million for sales tax for 2026. That would be a $200,000 increase. Now, the next page is not numbered because I just got it today. The packets were printed and numbered and punched. But Alan provided this to me. I emailed him the other day. He got it from the state today. And so you will see this compares the 24 and 25 sales tax by categories. However, there's some changes in this. The state used to do internet sales or electronic sales in its own separate category. They are no longer doing that. They have put all of those type of sales under department stores. So number one includes all Amazon sales, all electronic sales. If you whatever you buy over the internet is on line one.
And you would think it'd be a greater change, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Tax on tobacco products?
I'm sorry?
Tax on tobacco products, do we receive any tax from that? And if so, where is it categorized?
I will have to confirm that. I don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you.
I think the county does, but I don't think the city does, but I will, as I said, I'll confirm it for you.
Thank you.
So page 11 and 12, I'm showing the general fund revenue history from 2000 to 2024, and I'm showing you the 24 and the 25 budget. So what I want you to, what I want to point out here is that there are 10 areas within our general fund revenues that provides 82 to 89% of the budget, and those are the first categories that I list. And again, this is a lot of information. I don't expect you to absorb it all tonight, but I wanted to give you the detail so you can study it. So then on page 13, I show the revenue budget history, and I go back 25 years. So how has the city's budgets been funded for the past 25 years under these different categories? So you will see the tax levy, and I mentioned this in my earlier presentation. The tax levy, it's supporting 27% of the general fund budget right now. When you look back into the early 2000s, it was supporting over 40% of the budget. And even back in 21 and 22, it was supporting almost 31% of the budget, and it's now down to 27. Sales tax has gone the opposite direction. It used to support about 22% of the budget. It's now up to 28%. And then you'll see that I did all the major categories: ambulance, fire contract, state aid, and then all other. Then I also want to point out, because I know there's been discussion about appropriating fund balance for the budget. If you look at the history, we have appropriated fund balance and we have appropriated reserves almost every year for the past 25 years. And the reason being is because that's what it's there for. The appropriated reserves are approved for certain purchases on purpose. And there's another schedule here, I will go over that, the reasons why it's good responsibility. So I just wanted you to have this information so you can consider when we're discussing the budget how in previous years it has been put together. Page 14, I did the same thing with the expenditures. So I went back 25 years, giving you history of the different major categories: salaries, fringe benefits, post-employment. This is our retirees' health insurance, equipment, contractual, debt service, and transfers to capital projects. You will see that the salaries currently are 41% of the budget. They used to be almost 50%. If you go back to 2002, it was 49.11%. Fringe benefits is 23% currently. This is where a lot of our costs have gone up, and it's because of health insurance and retirement. We used to budget basically 3% for the city's contribution to the retirement system, and that was on the uniform personnel. That is now up to 38%. And we used to budget 3% for ERS. That is now up to, I want to say, it ranges from 17% to maybe 20%, depending on which tier you're in. So the retirement costs have greatly increased over these years. So again, it used to be 11%, it's up to 23%. And Greg and I are going to be meeting with our health insurance brokers to see what we can do. The last report that we got just last Thursday on a consortium board meeting is, remember I had reported to council, it's going to be about 19.9%. It is now down to 14%. But we are going to meet with our brokers to see what else we can do, what other options we have, because even a 14% increase is about a $400,000 increase in our budget. And it's just too big of a hit. So I will keep council posted the more information we get. What we did last year to get the health insurance down, we negotiated our, with the insurance company. Our deductible was $7,500. We put it up to $8,300. This year, we've got the option to bring it up to $9,200, so I want to see what that will do to our rates. I think $9,200 is the max. The city fully funds the $9,200 of the deductible with our nonstop, and it was our new structure when we moved to the consortium. So it does not affect the employee at all. It just affects how things get paid for.
Question?
Yes.
On the debt service?
Yes.
What is that mostly?
The $1 million change is because we had to take out a BAN for Market Street, and the interest, it's a bond anticipation note, and there's going to be a interest payment of about $220,000 due in November for that BAN, and that's the increase in it. It will be annual once we do our permanent financing, and I hope to issue that probably late this fall, or being able to postpone it to early 26. We'll postpone the debt payment to 27. So I'm going to see the timing on the cash.
Depends on the rates.
Depends on the rates, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so page 15, and Katie, I think this is where it's going to answer your question.
Okay.
So what I did, this is actual history on page 15. This shows you the different categories of our general fund balance and how it changed from year to year, and also the adopted budget. So, Katie, when you take, if you look at column P, Q, and R, those are the changes in the unrestricted fund balance, which excludes what we have appropriated.
Okay.
Okay, so you will see that it was 1.5 million for unrestricted, but we used 454,000. So the actual net increase in total was 1,087,000.
Okay, saw that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
And if you have more questions on it, just you and I can always meet together and we can go over the math.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, okay.
So, and this is where I said, I quote this quote on starting on row 35, reasons for a strong fund balance and reserve funds. This is right from the state controller's guidelines. And this is why this is good financial responsibility of setting up restricted reserves for our, our expensive equipment that we use, and, for all the different areas, police and fire, highway equipment, and our buildings and things like that. It shows that we're planning, and it shows that we're trying to be responsible for what we know is coming up. Okay, so 16 is a detail of our debt. Quite often people ask what we owe money on and why. So this is our total debt on each issue, and the description tells you why we had to borrow money at the time and what year it happened. And also I show the maturity date for it. And at the bottom, Don, right here, is where I list the BAN. And then page 17 shows you all of our future debt payments, including the interest on our outstanding debt. What is not in this total, which I put on the bottom, is that the BAN was issued in November of '24. I will not know what the permanent financing numbers are until it actually happens.
Jim,
Yes.
why is this at 12/31/23?
Oh, I'm sorry. That should say 24. Thank you for that. I will change that on my master. And page 18 is on the installment purchase that we did with Johnson Controls. That will be fully paid in 2027. And what that debt was for, it was for our water meters that we installed back in 2012. And there was also some weatherization and some like roof repairs and things like that, but that made some of our buildings more energy efficient. Page 19 will look familiar to you because it's in our financial, our audited financial statements. This breaks out all of our funds, all of our fund balance categories, and the different restrictions. Again, this is a lot of information to absorb, so I just want highlighting it for you so when you do go to read it, you'll know what this represents. Okay, page 20 is our restricted reserve summary. And this is where you will see our highway equipment reserve. If you go, what I did is I provided you 2023, 24, and 25 activity. And I gave you an estimated balance as of June 30th of 25. You'll see that our highway equipment reserve is down to 275,000. And that's why I'm suggesting to put 500,000 in it, because we have a number of pieces of equipment that we need to replace. The public safety is actually down to 89,000. You'll see that we've got committed almost 725,000. Some of that is not going to be spent until the fire truck arrives. But what makes up that number is that we've got almost 525,000 for the fire truck, and then we were doing 100,000 for the public safety building and the communication system. So there's another 100,000 there. That was adopted in the 25 budget. So the 525,000 for the fire truck will not leave our possession until the fire truck comes in. But I wanted you to show that that was committed. The actual cash balance of the fund is much higher because we haven't spent that cash, but I wanted to show you what we've committed. And then the streets and sidewalks is down to 803,000, and we have a number of streets projects that are coming up, so we want to replenish that fund also. So that's where the 1.5 million we are suggesting that you consider. Now, if you decide no, or if you decide you want to distribute it in a different way, that's, we can discuss whatever options you would like us to consider.
Katie?
I think it would be helpful for us to look at some of those level 3 actions before we determine where we would like
Exactly,
to
yep.
funds.
Yes, Len?
Typically, what is the percentage of our budget is spent on capital improvement?
If you go back to page 14, Len, do you see the equipment column?
Okay.
So it ranges depending on the year. So it could be as little as, I think the smallest number here is 1.6% up to 5.5%. So it will just depend on what type of equipment we're buying during the year.
Right, capital improvement.
What do you mean, by buildings and things like?
Yeah.
All of what I have listed here is equipment. It should say equipment and capital improvement.
I forgot what page, you have a list of capital improvements.
The capital projects? Is that what you mean?
Like,
Oh, I'm sorry, I
transfers to
thought you meant-
capital- Are you talking about transfer to capital projects, Len, on page 14?
There's page 15? Yeah, page 15, capital projects, sorry.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the .2 accounts within the general fund.
I know we got money.
Yeah, so if you go back to page 14 again, this time look at transfers to capital projects and other funds.
Oh, okay. So, how would you?
And if you need detail on those, just let me know, and I can provide it to you.
So Lynn, on those years where it says 0%,
Right.
for instance, the only capital projects that we did in DPW were funded through other means, so not through the annual budget chips. Those
Okay.
types of funding
So
sources
we
would not be
covered
accounted
an
for.
outside revenue source.
We covered what we did, yes.
So, is that what you're looking for as a level 3 then? Is that what you're trying to get to?
Strategic plan wise? Yes. Yes.
Could be, yeah. So if there's a, I guess, what are you thinking, like a setting a certain
Defining,
funding
right,
level of,
right,
for capital projects?
Right.
That could be under the infrastructure. It could be something as specific as there's a particular project that we want to implement. And, completing that project, seeking funding for it, whatever that may be, might be something that could be a level 3 action. A little bit more specific, because the level 3 actions, keep in mind, those are gonna change, and they could change as often as you want. But realistically, it's probably every year at least, they're gonna be updated, if not more frequently. They can be things that can be checked off. Not necessarily, it might be something that you wanna keep that same action every year. We wanna, the survey example I gave before, you might decide that's a great tool, we wanna do that every year. Or it might be something more specific that's a check the box, and then we're gonna add something else next year. Right.
Right, so if I go to page 15, page 15, so first page 15, I gotta go down to number 22 to get to sidewalks and curbs. And that is something, to your point, that I'm hit up a lot by constituents and just city residents as a general is, we need better sidewalks.
There you go.
There's streets that haven't seen repaving since the 80s. I mean, one gentleman equated it to one the New York Mets. He knows what I'm talking about. So then that's how he does it.
Yeah, that's a great example of the type of thing we want to see.
Right, so I'm just suggesting that, if you know what your capital expenses can be for every single year based on your revenues, then you have a consistency to know how much we can spend on those forms. You know what I mean? This seems very reactive, like we would pick and choose through the projects that need to be done and how much can we do it, but if we allocate a certain percentage of our overall revenue for capital improvement, then we know where we're headed every year.
You could do it that way, where you say there's a certain percentage of the overall revenue, which previously was 0, or you could set that, but what impact does that have to the rest of the budget? If we're saying 10% of our, whatever that number is, or whatever the percentage may be, we have to look at how that impacts operations otherwise.
Absolutely.
But then looking at the capital plan, which are more specific, here are the individual projects we're looking at, you can see how it fluctuates depending on the needs. So that there might be some logic to having that number change every year, not be a percentage based, but based on the need.
Right, it's the same thought process for me though with Waterworth, right? So we've been reactive with our water and sewer lines for decades. We haven't allocated a certain percentage to go over into our unrestricted so that we can start looking at projects, right? So that's where I'm headed in my thought process with this.
So
Right, with Waterworth, we've, this year and last year, first year in a long time, we've been able to dedicate $100,000 out of the annual revenues toward capital projects.
But doesn't give you enough money to actually do anything.
Not much.
Right.
But
So we would like to get that number up to $1 million or more, we're not
Right.
starting there.
But you
But-
see what I'm getting at though?
Yes, yes, we do. So that conversation is the type of conversation that I expect would happen when we start to look at the tertiary, that third iteration of more specific goals for our expenditures. So, and then the formula might be a conversation, how do we get there? Is it a formula? Is it monies that are set aside specifically? So that's a conversation that we would probably have in that context. So I think you're exactly on the right path. Katie?
Thanks. I came in the middle of that, but I have kind of a follow-up
Mhm.
comment, which is that, a question first, which is that anything that we restrict and don't spend, do we earn interest income?
Yes, yes.
So theoretically, if we were to say we want to reserve, $250,000, and there was a lower expenditure year, we would also be earning interest income on those reserves toward those future capital projects. So that's I think kind of a smart investment strategy. It would also make it much easier to implement something like 1% or 0.5% for art, because it would be a consistent amount year to year based on the capital projects reserve.
That's based on private investments though.
Not necessarily.
Really?
But again,
Can I
a
jump in?
conversation that we'll probably have in its proper context. But yes, thank you.
Again, like those level 3 actions, right?
Mhm.
Like we have a public arts
Exactly.
commission.
That's exactly
We would
right.
like to implement public art in our community. There theoretically, if we knew that there was half a percentage of money that we were going to be setting aside every year, it'd be much easier to implement those
Yeah,
types of things.
so council generally agrees that we want to do this thing, and then the conversation around how do we do this thing
Totally.
is how I see this discussion moving forward. I'm gonna go to Scott and then you, back to you. please.
You can jump in quick, 'cause mine's a different question, not even.
Okay, yeah, if I can just respond to
Sure,
both Len and
please.
Katie. Len, I just want to remind, I want to remind everybody that,
Well, I was just thinking potentially we could invest the interest income on unspent capital project funds
Yeah.
toward public art. Is that what you're gonna say?
no, no.
Oh, okay.
I just want to remind everybody, we also get a lot of allocation from the state between the CHIPS, the state touring, the pave our potholes in extreme weather that we do on the street repairs themselves. And I know that Chris has done I want to say, it's not a survey, but he had like a third party evaluate all of the streets, and so I know that he's using it as a guide as far as which ones that need repair. And Greg and I and Chris will sit down and look at the CHIPS budget for the capital projects, but we bring that to council when we adopt those budgets for you to know how we're funding those street projects. And Katie, if you go to page 20, you'll see that the interest earned in 2024 on our restricted investments for the general fund was $295,000.
That's right.
And water was 25 and sewer was 26. That money stays right in those restricted reserves itself.
Right.
And so, and then
But
also.
can't we, similar to like we have the Appleblaw Trust,
Mhm.
right? And that's restricted, but
Mhm.
the interest is what we spend. So I'm just wondering if we could
Well,
classify
what-
public art as an infrastructure.
What
improvement.
Greg and I and Judy have been talking about, we have another funding source that we're looking at that is probably going to be set up for about another between 20 and 30 years. I don't remember the number of years for the payoff. That brings in about $13,000 a year. And we want to look at that to see if we can set that up for the public arts annual budget.
Okay.
So, but that will be coming in to our future discussions for the budget process itself.
And as much as we can, without getting into the specifics of, how we might do this or that, I see that as being
Yeah.
really robust conversations as we move forward.
Okay?
Can I ask my question?
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
Back to, page 20 or whatever it was, where you're talking about, you have the $500,000 that we set aside for the fire truck. It hasn't come out.
Correct. We still have the cash.
Do we do that are we doing that every year, send 500?
Not without the council motion. What's reserving that commitment is the council motion for purchasing the fire truck.
Right, we did that.
Mhm.
We got the first 500 set aside.
Yeah, it's about $525,000.
Are we doing that again this year, another 500?
No, it wouldn't be specifically for the fire truck. It would go into public safety reserve itself. So say the police department needs vehicles or the fire department needs new equipment of some sort. So we would be depending on what the department has requests are going to be, we'll be bringing that to the council for approval as far as how we're going to spend that public safety money.
So it's not like broken up that so much is for the police and so much is for the fire?
No. When the public safety reserve was set up, it was set up in a general way, so the council had the ability to have flexibility in how to spend it. So I also wanted to point out that we've got $811,000 committed for the streets and sidewalks. What makes that up is we just approved $410,000 for the West Street retaining wall. And we have a balance for the Lettuce Highway Engineering project of $326,000, and then $75,000 for the Safe Streets and Roads program. So those are committed, but they are not yet spent.
I remember that we were talking about the West Street retaining wall.
Yeah, that council approved that last council.
I know we were talking about
And we just want to make sure everybody can hear
Yeah.
all the discussions. Push back.
We're just trying to figure out what page we're on.
Page 20.
Okay.
Before we turn the page, could I ask a question? So I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to, and I know that you all remember because I rant about it every time I can, how do I say this? The large purchase that we made
from the Parks and Recreation Reserve. So I just want to point that out now, put it in everyone's mind that potentially we would want to, when we are thinking about refilling reserves, that might be one that we would consider.
We did-
I think that's, again, sort of a level 3, like, do we want to do things in our parks? And if so, do we have money for it? Because right now we really
And-
don't.
And the conversation you're having right now is one that Greg and I had earlier today. So that we said we'll let the council decide.
Awesome.
Good.
Any other questions on that page?
I think we're good.
Okay, so now page 21 starts with the water fund. And again, I'm giving you the history of 20 to 24 on the revenues and the budgets. And page 22 is the expenditures. It's basically the same format. And then the last 2 pages of 23 and 24 are the sewer fund.
23 and 24 is.
23 and 24 of the sewer fund. And because of, they did earn surpluses this year, but I am still not going to make a recommendation to council to increase any of their reserves. We need to let the unrestricted fund balance grow and get a little bit stronger. And also, in the water fund, we just approved $230,000 for the water break that was down on Market Street. So I would like to not recommend anything being moved to the restricted reserves. Because the surplus that we realized in the water fund basically got used to fix that repair. And then, as I said, the next section is what the Budget Committee reviewed with the department heads. Are there any questions for tonight that you would like me to answer? I know this is a lot of information, it's a lot of numbers to absorb.
Looks like we're all set, Jenny.
But next meeting, what I plan on giving you is the 25 year-to-date, and I'm hoping to project 25 for year end. It's a little early in the year to do that because I don't have a lot of information yet as far as some of the activity, but so that I will be updating that in October. And then I'll be giving you all of the graphs. The graphs, we don't quite have the updated city comparisons finalized yet, but we will by the next meeting. Then I'll be giving you all the graphs that were handed out this year on the overtime information, and also comparing budgets to actuals for the past 5 years in that category. And I would like them to go right into your book, and for safekeeping. And also, all of this is going to be on the website. Carrie's a wizard at doing that, and I just need to give her the PDFs, and she'll make the magic happen. But,
So
yeah.
Ginny, thank you.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it. Okay, so a little bit of homework that we have, and obviously we're going to want to study these numbers at some length. Go ahead.
The strategic planning document
Yeah.
that we just passed out, I'm assuming that's somewhere in like a spreadsheet or a Word doc or something, because I think that was for me. Yeah, perfect. That would be a great format to.
You'll send that link to everybody?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so everybody will get a link to the strategic plan so that you're able to kind of access in the most convenient way that we have digitally. And yes, great.
I just wanted to follow up, just to get the council's sense on Flashboat. I sent some information earlier today. This is a particular cloud-based software program, subscription-based. I believe, was it $12,900 for the first year? And I would ask that if you agree with doing that, I could effect a transfer from general fund contingency, purchase that. That would give us, we'd probably end up doing 2 or 3 surveys over the course of this budget process, strategic planning process. Not sure exactly when we would do the first one. We'd have to develop the resident panel first, which might take a little while, a few weeks, month maybe. But by the time we have some good ideas from council and staff on the strategic plan, we could probably develop a survey to put out and get some input from the residents of Oneonta, do it again later in the process when we have a draft budget, and continually get some feedback on that. And as we go into our comprehensive planning process, which will start at some point in the next 6 to 8 months, I don't know, Judy, if I put you on the spot, but do you think that the comprehensive planning process would start this year, or is that more of a 2026 thing?
It was gonna start.
It's gonna start this year, so this is something that will inform that as well. So if that's something you generally think is a good idea, or don't think it's a bad idea, then
So
go
we
forward
have-
and do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah.
So you and I, we emailed each other, and so I still have concerns. I went back to their documents. I didn't see where they explained how they create more of a database on Oneonta residents. I wasn't quite getting there.
I think they have promotional materials, marketing materials, things that we'll be pushing out through our existing channels. Whether we do a mailer or we're, to try to get more people, or if we're just doing social media and other advertisements, that kind of thing, to get the word out there. They will monitor and adjust and advise what we may need to do to get the right demographics, essentially, to try to match what the city demographics are, so we don't have too much overrepresentation of one particular group of people or area. So I'm not, it's a bit of a vague answer, so I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out, but that is something that they work with us continually to get the right mix. And I know I mentioned to them that our college population isn't here right now, and they're going to be coming back, so we want to make sure we get them represented, and they'll work with us on that as well. And I know that you can look at the results with some geographic boundaries. If you wanted to break it up by ward, or if it made more sense in certain sections of the city, we can try to do that with these surveys, so you can see the responses, how it may differ depending on what area of the city you live in, or whether you're a particular age demographic or whatever other demographics we need to be able to look at.
Let me ask Scott.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to look at the email, Craig, so part of my question fits in
That's great.
the email. Is this like a signed contract that we have to do for X amount of years, or is it one of those things we're gonna try, and if it really doesn't meet what we need, we can still shop for other places or whatever?
I asked them to give me a price for just 1 year, so
1
you
year.
can do up to 6 surveys for the 1 year contract. We could do more if we pay $1,500 for additional surveys, but typically what they find with their clients is they do 3 to 5 in a given year. One every other month is probably about the most that you want to do with an overall. But yeah, it'd just be a 1 year contract. We could extend it for longer than that if we like it or not.
Cecilia.
Yeah, just a quick question. Well, I have a couple of comments. First, it's very exciting to be able to do this, because I think this budget season in particular, we need to hear from constituents directly.
Yep.
How will we be crafting the questions that we would be asking them? That was my sort of foundational, what kinds of information will be listening from them, and what kinds of data are we looking for?
My thoughts, and we can discuss this, but as we develop the strategic plan and we start getting some of these actions, there might be a few key areas that the council wants to get feedback on. We might ask, flash vote. They will help us craft these questions, make sure that they're not biased or poorly worded questions. So we can kind of give them an idea of what we're hoping to accomplish, and then they'll look at the information we have and help us craft the questions. So something we can kind of have an iteration back and forth to determine exactly what we're looking for. But they're not long surveys. These aren't 15-minute. These are 1, 2 minute, 5, 6 questions max sort of surveys, and the way that it's a flash bar, and they can get the results in 48 hours once they have the panel built. The panel being a cross section of our residents that kind of match our demographics. Doesn't mean that only the panel can respond; others can respond. So, let's say person A is on the panel and they get a notification from Flash Vote to respond. They can respond. They can share it with their friends. 10 friends, if they all agree on a particular issue, and this is a hot button issue, and they want to share it with them, everyone respond, they want to send the city a message, they can do that. But we'll be able to see the difference in the panel respondents, which is kind of a good cross section of demographics, plus all others, and you might see how that, depending on the issue, may be different, and that may be informative. So I think it's very useful data that I can't think of another way to get that.
We got a Katie, and then back to you, Cecilia.
Unless you.
Yeah, I did have a question, another just quick follow-up. Is this something that Carolyn Williams and SUNY would be interested in possibly, doing something with the city along, if SUNY Oneonta would be interested, or Hartwick would be interested in terms of data collection? I don't know. It would just be something maybe we could speak to them about.
I would think certainly as far as building awareness among students that this is out there, and trying to add, have them be represented in our panel.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I apologize, I only skimmed the email that you sent and opened the document and went, okay, I'm gonna have to digest that later. there's a new survey. I'm like, oh great, I really wanna do it. But say somebody, you know, we send out a survey about deer or something, and there's a group that really cares, and they all live on one street, but they want, you know, to be able to respond in different ways. Is that like a possibility, or like, so could you just expand on that, please?
As far as digital, it would be digital, once the panel is selected or set up. And they found that when we asked about, does anyone still go with mailers and that sort of thing, it's just really not something they do anymore. Most people are able to access a digital communication channel. But there's other ways that we can get input, obviously from your ward meetings and how you report back. There's ability to come here, write a letter to council, just having something on our website, sharing the budget documents that we have. I think there
Yeah, I mean, of course,
Or
it doesn't
other ways that we
replace
can try
those
to-
things. I
yeah.
just wondered if that could be kind of aggregated into the data in some way, but it sounds like no, it's just like a digital thing. That's, people can figure it out. I mean, I have faith in them, I do think that they can.
Yeah.
But,
Would they be able to go to the library to participate in the survey and use the computer there or not?
potentially.
So the consensus of council is that this is something that we all feel like Greg should pursue?
I'd be willing to do it for a year.
I just,
1 year? Go ahead.
yeah, I just wanna say, cause I did look through the examples and everything, and, you know, one of the things that I know I emailed Greg that I was impressed with, you know, they gave examples, you know, if you have a chance to go back and look at their examples, data, you know, about how, you know, a city facing a budgetary shortfall used Flash Vote to identify priorities and, you know, what were the top things, you know, for the city, and that helped them in crafting their budget. So for me, that was one of the things that convinced me that it's a good idea. But I do think, you know, just any way, I know we're always looking for new and better ways to be in communication with residents, and I think that this could be a really incredibly helpful tool.
All right, so I feel like we've got a consensus. Anybody says no to this? Maybe the easier way to do it, so I feel like you're okay. I think that takes us to the end of this meeting, but we will see one another in about,
Just I feel like.
hang on 1 second, Ginny?
I just wanted to let the council know that the STA will be here on Wednesday the 30th for the inspection of the transit hall, so I will let you know how it goes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, folks.